Your elbow okay?
It's okay. I have a bursa.
Huh?
I have a bursa. Is your head okay?
Yeah, a little bit. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you're having a beautiful Thursday morning. Hope you're having a beautiful week. It is hot. Hey, it's a little after 9 o'clock. It's Thursday. You know what time it is. Time for the workplace here exclusively on KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people, community radio. I'm your host for the workplace, Toney Orr, and it's always my fierce, vivacious, strong co-host is in the studio, the Reverend Dr. Denise Danielle.
You can call me Denise. Good morning, Grand Rising people, humans.
Any announcements you need?
I do have some announcements that I need to make actually. Let me get you on the screen. Uh, what is that? Is it you or is it me?
That was me.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to announce this is from Decarcerate. Yeah, this is from Decarcerate. It says they're having art night on Monday, August 17th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Decarcerate office at 1010 West 3rd Street in Little Rock. And it tells you how to enter. Together, we will create a mural for Decarcerate's office that reflects our collective vision of the world we want to build. The prompt is simply, what do we need more of in our communities? So Decarcerate is inviting us to Art Night on Monday, August 17th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at their office, 1010 West 3rd Street, right here in Little Rock. I also have another announcement that I'd like to make. So those of you, the rally at the Capitol for Elisa. The rally at the Capitol for Elisa was supposed to happen today at 3 o'clock p.m. Elisa is the young 18-year-old Black queen who was punched in the face by the Arkansas State Trooper, and we're having a rally for her. But they've changed the rally from today to August 25th. So keep that in mind. From today, it's not today, it's August 25th. Also, Chris Jones is having the People's Table on Thursday, September 10th, 2026 from 6 to 8. If you are interested in that, it's just an intimate setting where you can sit with him and ask questions and just find out more about this candidate for Congress. It's happening on, it's September 10th. And if you would like to participate, we do need you to RSVP, and we do need you to do that in text form. The number is 501-838-0833. 501-838-0833. Just give us your name, your phone number, and your email address, and we will put you on the list. We need a head count so that we can know the best venue and the best way to give you a little something to eat. I think that those are all of the announcements that I have. Oh, that tax lien workshop. Oh, no, no, no. Here we go. Unpacking the Roots of Arkansas Wealth in Arkansas. It's a report that's happening. And Dr. Karama Neal is one of the guest speakers, and also Benito Lubazibwa and Alex Carmerdale. I'm not sure who Alex is, but they're talking about, the roots of wealth. It's a report that they'll be giving to us about wealth in Arkansas. And I do think that that's everything that I have for today.
Okay, thank you for those announcements, Denise. I had been kind of out of the office uh, the past couple of days and basically out of the loop on a lot of things. But when I heard this morning watching the news about the young woman who got punched by the state trooper, what was the name again?
Elisa.
Lisa. And in watching the past couple of days and watching the news, you know, there's an old saying, the more things change, the more things they say. And I know this is the workplace where we talk about all things work related, being arrested, being assaulted, being treated uh, unhuman, whether it's by the police, whether it's by the government, whether it's by any entity, all that goes into your workplace. Because when those things happen not only in the community, it happen in the work in where you work at too. And it it should it should resonate with everybody. It should be something that should bring out indignation in everyone. It's something that should bring out uh, a a response against this type of treatment. Because when you look at, I saw this report where a lot of police departments are now being all this money that was given to the Department of Homeland Security, especially to ICE, something like $115 billion that was given to ICE. And what ICE has done is funnel that money into police departments to where police officers now basically become agents of ICE, because part of this money is for training, part of this money is to offset paying these officers to do the work of ICE. And so when I heard about this situation with Alicia, the first thing, and I heard the audio of it, and the first thing I thought about, isn't this what they are doing to um, people they arrest doing ICE raids? But it also goes back to something that Denise talks about on Tuesday with the EJI tidbit. It's something that continuously happens to people in this country who are viewed as marginalized, who are viewed as invaluable, who are viewed as dehuman. And so this just keeps happening. And then you listen to these candidates during this election season, because let's face it, uh, when I walked in this morning and there was some things going on, the first thing Jesse started talking about, hey, you have a wonderful day, everything's good. And I know Jesse is cool, but I told him, oh, don't try to butter me up. Well, that's what these candidates are doing a lot of times, is buttering you up. But sometimes they don't want to address the underlying issues. And I think no matter what administration, whether it's Democrat, whether it's Republican, there are these underlying issues that continue to pop up, plague our communities. And it's like it's just always there. When do the community, when does people decide that, hey, We 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 have to stop it unless we know there's powers to be that don't want to stop it. They want to keep it going because they want to have a certain amount of control. And so as we get ready to head to the polls in a couple of months, as we get ready to listen to all these politicians and their rhetoric, as we get prepared to decide what type of administration we want to have, what type of government we want to have, this is something that has to be on the forefront. This has to be one of the main topics. This has to be a question that has to be asked. When I hear these congressional hearings for these nominations of these different department heads, the cabinet heads, and they ask them, do you believe that Joe Biden won the 2020 election? And they skirt around it. They don't want to answer completely. Well, why shouldn't the question be, do you believe that America is a racist country? Do you believe America needs to change? Do you believe that the police are profiling and using excessive force against Black, brown, and other minorities? And that's the question that should be asked, and it should be a straightforward answer from these candidates. Either yes, I believe it, or no. I've heard some candidates. I listened to Tim Scott the other day, who he said that he didn't believe there was any racism anymore in America, which is so. What's the word? These mind-boggling. It's so mind-boggling because here is a Black man from South Carolina, the home of Lindsey Graham, and Strom Thurmond, who claims there's no racism in America. And that's just, like I said, it's mind-boggling because how can you say it when it's right there in your face? This issue with Alicia is right in our face. And I did not get the name. I heard the name of the officer, but I did not get it. I thought it sounded like a Hispanic officer's name, but in listening to the officer, it sounds like the officer was Black.
No, he wasn't Black.
He wasn't.
Did you watch the video? He doesn't look like in the video.
I just heard the audio. So can you, since I haven't seen the video, can you give us a little more context on it, Denise?
She got pulled over, and there was in her car, there was a bottle of Tito's, a little bitty bottle, but it was not opened. So they really couldn't get her on open container. But so he's concocting this, right? And so she's a minor, and so now he's saying that she's a minor. But so they're having this conversation, and then he goes back to, you know how they do, they run the tag. So he goes back to do whatever he does, and he comes back and he's like, look, basically he's saying, look, I'm gonna have to arrest you. You know that, right? And she's trying to ask why. And so he talks about minor in possession, all of that. And then he wants her to get out of the car so she can be arrested. And she's like, but wait a minute, what's happening? So he's like, just turn around. So then he begins to, force her to turn around. And that's what he wants her to do, turn around. And then he wants to force her down. So he's forcing her down. He's basically, I mean, they like wrestling. And that's when he punches her in the face. And so I think that the major charge that he's trying to get her with is speeding probably. And then being in possession of the Tito's bottle, even though it was not open.
Yeah. So
Keep talking.
We've had law enforcement here on the show. We've had prosecuting attorneys here on the show. We've had public defenders here on the show over the years. And one of the things that is always said by these law enforcement and these people who prosecute or defend, they say, well, anytime you're non-compliant, things go things can go awry. When you are not compliant, if the officer said turn around, you're supposed to turn around. If the officer said get on your knees, you're supposed to get on your knees. Anything other than doing what that officer tells you to do is grounds for that officer to act in a way to get you to comply. Now that's what they say, but we know that's bullshit. Because even when you comply, you get shot.
Philando Castile.
Yeah. Even when you comply, and it's almost like you're not supposed to ask a question. You're not supposed, when you get stopped, you're not supposed to ask the question, why? It reminds me of the movie 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. And Eddie Murphy, in this scene, Eddie Murphy is in this bar. And he just goes off in this bar and does things, and, roughs up some people. And so he's frisking the white patrons of this bar. And the patron turns around and says, "What type of cop are you?" And he says, I'm not going to use the word, the N word he used, but he basically said, "Yeah, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a Negro with a badge. That means I get paid to whoop your ass." In situations like this with Alicia, in situations like for Mr. God, you just mentioned his name, but Castillo, Mr. Castillo. In situations like Breonna Taylor, but that kid.
You had me.
Yeah.
You had me confused.
Yes. George Floyd, in situations like that, in reality, we pay the police to abuse not only other people, but even to be abused by ourselves. And they're right. What Eddie Murphy said in that movie, if you flip it, you say, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a cop with a badge. I got a badge. I get paid to do what I do. I get paid to pull you by your hair out of a car, body slam you and put cuffs on you. I get paid that if you make a wrong move, I get to shoot you. John Starks, the officer here in Little Rock, who literally jumped on the hood of a car and shot 12 times into a car to kill someone. And I don't care what you say. They can call it justifiable homicide. They can call it justifiable force. They can call it whatever they want to call it. I call it murder. I call it murder. And that's what we have to start asking these candidates. That's what we have to start asking our community. That's what we have to start asking. Do you agree with the murder of innocent people? Do you agree with the excessive force of innocent people? Do you agree? Like I said, I haven't seen the video, but I've heard the audio. When is it acceptable? She did have a weapon. Just because she does not want to turn around, does that give you the right to punch her with no weapon? Those are the questions. Those are the questions that we need to start asking when these candidates are running for office. We know gas prices are high. We know there's an affordability issue. We know housing is a problem. We know groceries are a problem. We know all these things. But what's a bigger problem is how can I be safe in my car? How can I be safe on the street? How can I be safe in my own house? And I'm not talking about the robber. I'm not talking about the mugger. I'm not talking about the thief. I'm talking about the police. When can we be safe?
So here's Hotel. First of all, of course, wishing us life, prosperity, and health, Unc, you, Job, and Seneb. But here's a question. He said, well, no, this is a statement. However, well, it's a question. How long is this abuse by the police going to continue? When does their law enforcement powers be put in check? How long will this abuse by the police continue? When do their law enforcement powers that be, when are they going to be put in check? But if you watch the video, or even if you listen to the audio, after he punches, okay, let me go back. Her name is Elisa Hackett, and the trooper's name is Moises Ariano. So that doesn't sound black to me, but you never know. But that sounds brown. He looks brown on the video. I did watch it. Elisa Hackett, and she has filed a complaint, filed a suit against Moises Ariano. But when he punches her in the face, and she stands up. She said, I know you didn't just punch me in my face. And he says, who said I can't punch you in the face?
Yes.
So when Lowe asks the questions, when do the enforcement powers that be, when they put them in check, they've already given them permission. So in order to put them in check, you got to get rid of the powers that be, because they are maintaining this system of inhumanity, because they have a right to do it, because they are allowed to do it. Like, nobody stops them, because the powers that be are willing. This is what they want to happen.
And so, for those of you who travel to other countries, one of the things you will see when you go to another country, is whether you're at the train station, on the street, bus stations, airports, there's two different entities that are at play. So you have a military entity, that's there, especially when I go to countries like France. You walk through the airports, you see military, the military patrolling the airports. You may get on the subway, they get on the subway, but then you also have the police. So there's this thing where they say that by the Constitution, and it's been this fight when they call out the National Guards in different cities and everything. They say the military cannot be deployed on domestic soil. The military cannot be called out to go into the streets unless there is this so-called emergency, insurrection, or anything. But they have already been deployed. And what I mean is, all you have to do is look at police departments. They have been given everything that the military has. You look at police officers now, you think you're watching some soldier in Iraq, Afghanistan. They have the military gear on. They have the military style weapons. They have the military vehicles, even in the schools. Everything has been emulated with the police department. And why? Because going back to Bill Clinton, when they were talking about 3 strikes and that the police had to be better armed for the people on the street, they start switching. And now, basically, the police has always acted, especially towards Black and brown people, they have always acted in a forceful way because they don't value you. Now it's getting to the point where they don't value anybody. And they act in a military style. Everything they do is a military style. So when you see ICE agents, when you see DEA, when you see Homeland Security stop people, pull them out their cars, beat them up, throw them in a van and drive them to a detention center, don't you think police are going to do the same thing? Because they feel like, hey, if they can do it, we can do it, and who going to stop us? It comes to a point where we have to stop it. We have to stop it. And when I said we, if this didn't bother you, and I'm so sick and tired of people who come up with justifications. I remember some years ago we had uh, I forget the young lady who was running for uh, prosecuting attorney for the city of Little Rock. And she kept saying, well, it all depends on the circumstance when it comes to this. It all depends on the circumstances. It all depends on the circumstance. You can't tell me what circumstance allows you to punch someone in the face when there's no threat. So, okay, so you got to wrestle with somebody to get them to the ground. That's your job. That's part of your responsibility. If you say you're there to serve and protect, then you have to try to protect that person, not beat them up. But as long as we come up with excuses for the behavior will always continue where they should have just, and I know there's people who will look at that video, hear that audio and say, well, she should have just got out. Or she shouldn't have been driving around with Tito's in her car. What? Come on now. We can't keep giving them passes. We can't keep giving them, a way out. Well, she should have just been compliant. If she would did what she was supposed to do, she wouldn't got punched. Oh, okay. So if if you as a woman, it's really for anybody, but I'm just using a woman as a context. So you as a woman, your man, your partner, whoever comes home, and you haven't cooked dinner, and get punched in the mouth, what you supposed to say? Oh, if she would have cooked dinner, she would have got punched. Does that make any sense? So just because she didn't comply, she deserves to get punched in the mouth? When are we going to stop? When are we going to stop?
So Lowe is on the line. Lowe is on the line, and he says this: police departments are paramilitary units using the same rank and file as the military. So he's agreeing with you. Police departments are paramilitary units using the same rank and file as the military. So what was the last question? You said, when are we going? She deserves to get punched. Well, I don't think that the questions are, is America racist? I don't think that's the question, because everybody knows that it is. And even those people that you ask the question, they're going to say no, but they already know that it is. And so I don't think I don't think we'll get very far with that question. But when I think about what happened to Elisa Hackett, I also think about the times that white people have gotten pulled over and have had guns. They have had guns. They have had they've tried to fight the police. They've done all of these things, and yet they stay alive. So they know how to de-escalate a situation. They know how to not cause harm to the body not excessive harm to the body while they're trying to. They know how to. They don't need no more training. They don't need no more money. They don't need no more support. They don't need no more nothing. They need for Americans, white Americans, to raise up and say enough is enough. They need white America to solve their own problem, which is white inhumanity. That's y'all's problem. That's not our problem. You need to solve your own problem. And because white inhumanity, that system of whiteness, refuses to do so, because the fear of that, the fear of losing their status, the fear of losing their power is so great in them that they cannot function. They cannot think. They cannot rationalize. They are insane, especially right now. So what we're seeing is insanity. This is an 18-year-old girl who probably weighs a buck 120, well, buck 05, soaking wet. And you are a grown man that has training. You got the build, and the only way you can figure out how to get her under control is to punch her in the face. Look, let's have a real conversation. And that is the question. Can we have a real conversation? If not, I don't even know what we're talking for. I don't even know why we're talking.
You're right. And it's hard. When I tell you, have you ever been so disgusted that you just want to throw up from hearing certain things. You just get sick to your stomach. I saw this happen when uh, Mandani, 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 my God, Mandani won in New York. El uh, Shahid won in Michigan. When Barack Obama won the presidency, the first thing that comes out, oh, now we're going to turn into a Muslim country. We're going to turn into a communist country. We're going to turn into a jihadist country. We're going to be this. We're going to be that. And because there's a reason why you attack education in a country. It's a reason why you attack the media in a country. It's the reason why you attack libraries. It's a reason why. And that reason is if you create a uneducated society, that means you can create a controllable society. One of the reasons they never wanted black people or slaves, the enslaved people, the First Nation people, and even women. One reason you don't want to educate them is because if they don't know, if I create a system where they don't know, where I can tell them what they should know and I can control them. But the more you learn, the more knowledge you achieve, then the more you can make rational decisions and look at things for the way it really is. And when you hear now, these candidates, Democratic and Republican, independent and unitary, when they start talking certain code words, when they start talking certain things, and you look at it and say, no, that's not the truth. It's hard to get convinced people of a reality when they can't understand the truth of that reality. Going back to what I said about Tim Scott. Tim Scott grew up in the South, in South Carolina. He even says, I saw racism. I saw injustice. I saw these things like a Clarence Thomas. But then you get a position where you like, there's no racism. How can you deny what you experience? How can it?
Well, this racism, the racism creates coons. And Tim Scott is a coon, and so is Clarence Thomas, and there's some more. But okay, let me get this from Lowe. Lowe says America is racist. Racism is the DNA of America. Now that's the truth, absolutely. I was looking for this passage. I want to read this paragraph to you. It's from "Stranger in a Village" by James Baldwin. James Baldwin has taken a sabbatical over to this Swiss village, and he is the only Black person that many of those people have ever seen. And so what he's done in this essay is he's written about his experience and the parallel between what happens to Black folks in America and the parallel of what's happening to him in this Swiss village. And so he's talking about identity, all of those things. So I want you to hear this paragraph that's part of this essay called "Stranger in the Village." The time has come to realize that the interracial drama acted out on the American continent has not only created a new Black man, it has created a new white man too. No road whatever will lead Americans back to the simplicity of this European village where white men still have the luxury of looking on me as a stranger. I am not really a stranger any longer for any American alive. One of the things that distinguishes Americans from other people is that no other people has ever been so deeply involved in the lives of Black men and vice versa. This fact Faced with all its implications, it can be seen that the history of the American Negro problem is not merely shameful, it is also something of an achievement. For even when the worst has been said, it must also be added that the perpetual challenge posed by this problem was always somehow perpetually met. It is precisely this black-white experience which may prove of indispensable value to us in the world we face today. The world is white no longer, and it will never be white again. This world is white no longer, and it will never be white again. That's what white folks need to, that's what they can't grasp. This world is not white. It will we're not going back. I don't care how much you try. Why are white people always fighting the lost cause? Y'all still mad about the Civil War? Always fighting lost cause. I don't care what you do with the laws and the policies around reproductive justice. If every white woman had 2 babies today, you still can't fix the numbers. And so this is insane. You've got science, you've got biology, you got all of this knowledge that's telling you that you are wrong, and yet you still fight to be right. You are insane. What do we do about that insanity? That becomes one of the questions I think we also should ask.
Yes, yeah, because like you said, it's crazy. It's like there is this drive, this idea across this world. It's that, and that's all the far right is. That's all the far right is about, no matter where it is. Call you on there.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Sister Denise.
Good morning, Ezekiel.
I was on the web and listening to all this on the radio. Tony, you mentioned uh, I guess you can say the city itself, police department, militarized, looking like GIs with tanks and armored jets and cars and all the weapons that were soldiers. So that lets us know right then and there that we're in a war.
Hmm.
Somebody's in a war. So if we're the ones that the combatants, and you have to be a combatant to be interacting with someone that's a soldier, then we're the only ones that don't realize we're in a war. And I'm thinking of an incident that happened in the not too distant past in Oklahoma. A female officer said she pulled her taser to shoot someone. They just all grab their weapons and start firing. And we've seen it over and over and over again with the ICE, how they just empty their guns, look like into the bodies of innocent people, American citizens, white or black. But this particular was a white female officer, and the victim was a black man. And she said she thought she was pulling her taser, and she pulled her service revolver and shot her. Yeah. That comes to my mind. And when it comes to this guy just flailing away on this woman, beating her with his fist, he wrote in his report that he struck her with a cold fist. And they didn't do anything to him for that. They didn't remove him from service as if he shot someone. I mean, he's still on the force, stopping people or monitoring the radar or whatever. But we're in a war. And we're not combatants. We're victims. We're like the folks that get bombed in Gaza Strip or whatever with collateral damage. But there is a war going on, and they dress like warriors, they act like warriors, and the government treats them like soldiers of war. Because, like you say, if you don't comply, then they have an out. Or supposed to have an excuse, not reason, have an excuse for doing what they do to neutralize you or bring you into compliance. They're coming out with some gloves that if you put the gloves on you, they'll stop. I don't know when these will be ready to be used, but it's something new in the criminal justice or the police department genre. Gloves that if they lay their hands on you, will shock you. be given to the house people. And then I had $20 or whatever. They'll probably have a dry run and 5 mile phone call over time. But that's America for us. We know how America is, where black folks are not given credit for anything at all. Florida, the government said that slavery was good for us. They taught us everything, even though they didn't say that St. Augustine was found more that was on the ship that lost Columbus because Columbus was lost, didn't know where he was, but the Moors knew where they were, or the Moors knew where he was. Chicago was founded by a black man. Founded by a black man. The South, where folks don't even know it, won't even mention it. There's been no contributions of anybody of color in America. Won't tell you if there was, and everything that they got just about is stolen to credit for it because we weren't able to have access to the courts. Still don't have access to the courts because all of our lawyers, for the most part, are part of the problem in a way that they won't admit. And you've got one or two so-called civil rights lawyers whose name pop up whenever there's a blatant case of injustice that the world sees, or there's a film about it, or a lot of news about it. And that's one man. That's just not going to get the job done. All of our lawyers should be fighting against injustice, just as them companies. I'm going to be out there. We're in a war zone, and I think the reason that they're not interested is because they know it's a war, and they don't want to be a part of it because they'll be viewed as a combatant. And we know what happens when you're viewed as a combatant by soldiers, because Toney, you're ex-soldier, so a lot. We know what the missions are, or the mission is. And I'll get off there and hopefully someone will comment on it. But that lady said she was reaching for her taser. She shot him. She put on her service weapon. Here. So, I mean, that's what happened. Y'all have a good day. That's the way I can talk with you. And hope everybody listening and stay hydrated and don't overheat. I'll put you later.
So I really believe that that woman who pulled the gun instead of the taser, I really do believe that she made a mistake. Why? Because she was so scared. The very presence of a black man, especially for a white woman, it instills, they so scared. I ain't never seen nothing like it before. And so when Ezekiel talks about us being in war, yes, and it's a lot of black who I don't know if they don't know that they're in a war, but they don't want to participate because they've been dulled. They've been dumbed down. Internalized racism is at work. Materialism is at work. Classism is at work. We've got all of these isms that we are now compliant with. We are now complicit with, that they keep us from raising up. I have been called militant. I have been called sister soldier. I've been called aggressive. I've been called, and you know what? I consider every one of those to be wonderful adjectives for me, because that lets you know that I'm from the FAFO nation, and you don't want to mess with me because I ain't scared. And so if we had enough black people, and not just black people, if we had enough people on the side of right, on the side of what imaginary justice is supposed to look like, if we had enough people that were like, okay, come on, come with it, then what would the war look like then? So until people are ready to quote unquote enlist and come out from under the shroud and the veil of trying to be so close to whiteness and that system, we're not going to be able to fight back, because religion absolutely is one of the barriers to us fighting back. So we got to get ourselves together, and we really don't have time to do that. Let me get this comment in from Low. Genetic annihilation is real for white folks, for you cannot get the recessive white gene from the dominant black gene. Genetic annihilation is real for white folks, for you cannot get the recessive white gene from the dominant black gene.
So let's bring this full circle. You know, this is the workplace. And we've been talking about community. A lot of things happen in community, police operate in community. But the one thing that we leave out, and I always tell people this, unless you work from home, you don't live where you work at. 90% or more of people, they travel to another place where they work at, then they travel back home. The workplace has now, well, the workplace has always been a microcosm of the community. So when I look at my nursing homes that we represent in Shreveport, when I look at the city of Little Rock employees who we represent, the Central Arkansas Library workers that we get, when I look at all the workers we represent in all these different places, those, and I know people, there's some words that people don't like to hear. That's why they're trying to take it out of the vocabulary of this country. That's why they're trying to whitewash history, because, like I said, if you educate it, you can connect the dots. In most workplaces, it does not matter, whether you black, white, Hispanic, Asian, First Nation, however you describe yourself, it operates as a plantation. You have someone at the top who controls everything. They control. If you at the bottom, you basically a field hand.
Well, somebody at the top who controls it, who has also authorized an overseer who probably looks like you to keep you in control, because he ain't gonna get his hands dirty.
No.
Your hands are dirty, and so keep going with your.
Yeah, you call it corporate. We just say corporate. So you got corporate, which is predominantly white corporate. Then as you come down, you got mid-level. You call them administrators. You can call them facility administrators. You can call them whatever you want to call them. If the workplace, a lot of times, it depends. Sometimes you have a workplace that those administrators, those managers are white. But what they'll do, they'll hire
A supervisor.
a supervisor that's black. Now, here's where it becomes crazy. So white workers feel like they're being discriminated against because the supervisor is black. Black workers feel like they're being discriminated or work hard because the black person who wants to keep their job puts their foot on their neck. In other words, the house Negro, the house Negro has to be harder on the black workers than the white workers. There is an entity that I'm dealing with in Shreveport where they hire a white manager to basically run everything. And they said, listen, we had to do this because we were on the verge of getting sued or having an EEOC complaint, because if there's only a few white employees in this entity, if those white employees feel like they're being intimidated, they're being bullied, they're being singled out because they're white, then they file discrimination against us. And it goes back. When did white people become victims? When did white people become victims of racism? But that's it. That's part of this war. It's a war within a war. And the thing about it, what people don't realize, at the end of the day, if you're not at the top, then you at the bottom. And if you at the bottom, you ain't got no more. And I think people lost their mind when was Alex Petty and Renee Good got shot in Minnesota. They were like, oh my God, they shot them. They shot into the car and killed a white woman. Oh, they said this white guy, they took the gun. When you see that video, they took the gun from him. You can see it. The officer took the gun from him and then said gun, and they all stood up and shot him. And they were like, they lost their minds. White America lost. Oh, I can't believe what this. That's not supposed to be us. It just goes to show they don't care about you either. You poor white, they don't care about you. All all they care about at the end of the day is who gonna make that money for me. We need you we need you. And one other thing I'm gonna say.
I want to say something about racism. You said, when did white people become victims of racism? I want to answer that question. It happened because you changed the definition of the word in your own mind. You've changed the definition of the word. Black people cannot be racist. Point blank, period. Black people cannot be racist, and white people cannot be victims of racism, because the definition of racism is rooted and grounded in power. Black people do not have the power to change the trajectory of your life. We cannot do anything tonight. We can beat you up. We can pistol. We can do that kind of stuff. But as far as where you live, as far as where you can go to school, as far as your health care, as far as your employment, the system of whiteness, the system of white inhumanity can control your destiny by the power of racism. Black people have no power to do that. So it's not true. So they scared talking about white people. It shouldn't be allowed. They shouldn't be allowed to say, I'm gonna file a suit because you racist against me. It's not possible. And so that's why language is so important, and that's why they spend so much time taking out words and redefining words, because they know the power of language. So that's how they became victims, because we allow the language to be used however they want to, and we sitting back letting it happen. We don't say anything about it.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. So many people have failed for the okie doke. That's why when they talk about this piece of paper, that's all it is. It's a piece of paper they ain't worth wiping your butt with. Called the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They ain't worth it. So we hold these truths, we hold these things to be true, that all men are created equal. So when they wrote this, nobody was equal. The only equal meaning were white male landowners. Everybody.
And that they had property, which included slaves.
Yeah.
And people who were enslaved.
Yeah.
Don't forget that part.
Yeah. Everybody else was underneath, including poor white people. And that's the okie doke. Yes, the same thing. Now, like I said, you have a lot of white people tripping because they're losing their Medicaid, they're losing their Medicare, their Medicaid, their SNAP benefits, their housing benefits. They losing all that. And they were like, hold up, I'm white. You poor. We don't care. And that's the thing. That's the thing. We all in the same boat. The problem is you have poor white people in the boat who think they're better than everybody else in the boat. We in the sinking boat.
Because they have a Trump card.
Yeah.
And we don't have that Trump card.
And you know what? It's being shown now. Your Trump card don't work no more. You can play that white card all day long, but you know what? It sure ain't gonna get you. It sure ain't gonna get you better housing. It sure ain't gonna get you your groceries. You know what? Your Trump card ain't gonna make your gas price go down. It ain't gonna make your grocery bill go down. It ain't gonna make your car price go down. It ain't gonna get you. It ain't gonna make nothing different if you are poor.
And being poor is expensive.
Yes, it is.
I do want to make sure that I do have another announcement that I needed to make earlier, and I really this is a very important announcement. It's tax lien wealth builders. Want to learn how to buy houses for just the taxes owed? It's true. When a homeowner is behind on their property taxes, you can get 16 to 24% returns when you buy the tax lien on the property. If they still don't pay, you can foreclose on the house for just the taxes owed and attorney fees. Learn how at these free West Little Rock, North Little Rock, Conway, Russellville, downtown, and Hot Springs area live events. The next one is coming up this Saturday in West Little Rock, Sunday in North Little Rock, Monday in Conway, Monday in Russellville, Tuesday in downtown, and Tuesday also in Hot Springs. Now, why am I saying that? Why do I want you all to listen to this? Because there are people in our midst, people in your neighborhood who are going to lose their homes to these kinds of shenanigans. But if we have the knowledge, we can help them. We can come alongside them. We can pool the money together and go, especially in these these churches, don't y'all have benevolent offerings? You can raise the amount of money to pay the taxes for the folks. So we need to learn this information so we can use it on the flip side to keep this from happening to our siblings. That's why I wanted to make the announcement.
Okay. Well, we're out of time. It's time for us to get out of here. I do want to echo one sentiment that Matt said. Please, it's hot. Stay hydrated. Take care. Make sure you check on the elderly in your neighborhood. But more important, this heat is no joke. So please take care of yourself. Hope you have a great weekend. And all the announcements, as they said, the judge, govern yourself. So, hey, any last words, Denise?
If we want a world that is more just, more equitable, more peaceful, and more inclusive, we have got to learn how to live and love differently.
All right. So, remember, we're still in Players Drive. So,
oh, wait a minute. Domino's in the park tomorrow. I completely forgot. I told somebody we're going to start it up it was supposed to be last Friday. I forgot. This Friday, I will be there 5 to 7. I'm going to send out as many notices as I can. 5 to 7 tomorrow at Petaway Park. Domino's in the park is back.
Hey, yes.
Hey.
Hey. All right. Take care. See y'all later. Bye.